Welcome to the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast.
Well, then Perez has got the better of it, and he looks to get the better of Michael, and he's done it. Wilshere going to fall here for Alexis. Henry, chance.
It's 25 minutes of champagne football and 65 minutes of sparkling grape juice football as Arsenal get past Doncaster Rovers 1-0 at the Emirates in the, it says here, Carabao Cup. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review, because if you don't do it now, you certainly will not be doing it after this podcast, where I am joined only by Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello. By the way, I'm on the grape juice.
You're on the grape juice right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Chardonnay tonight. Should be good.
Chardonnay. Dear God, man. It's the evening. Drink a good red wine. What's wrong with you? Brexit means Brexit. Anyway. So, yeah, all right, look, I think the first thing we have to talk about here, Clive, is just that the manager seems to struggle knowing how to balance wanting to get the young players into the side while still retaining a level of seniority and getting playing time for senior players. And what it has wound up meaning is that the young players get in, but they don't get in at their preferred position. I looked at this lineup, and what I saw was a mess. I mean, it looked like he had one of those boggle cups and threw names in it and then just dropped them down on a pitch to see where they landed. How disappointed were you to see players who we're so excited about, like Maitland-Niles and Nelson, thrown into the squad in positions that we know probably don't suit them?
Yeah, it's a shame, right? So we spoke last time, didn't we, about what's the formation for the second team, and we sort of all agreed begrudgingly that 4-2-3-1 would suit them a little bit better. Wait.
I didn't agree. You and Tim agreed, and now I'm here to tell you I was wrong.
Yeah. Once me and Tim agree, that's it. The patent is done. It's gospel, right? So the reason why we're thinking that way is just a thought process. We're going to get more players standing in the right part of the pitch so they can really shine. And when you're a second team-ish player, you want to impress, don't you? So if you want to impress, you want to be in a part of the pitch where your muscle memory and thought process is really, really natural, right? And when we went 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it, I just felt there was 2 or 3 people not playing where they want to play, which is a shame for them, really, because they can't really show an expectant fan base that's heard all about them their top game, and it just felt a little bit disjointed. But I suppose with the opposition, we could get away with almost anything we wanted. But I felt for the players that have waited many, many years for some of them to have their moment at home, and for others really trying to establish themselves with the manager, and they weren't quite able to over a sustained period of time.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is I think you look at it, and Alexis, Theo, and Giroud are about the worst 3 players you could put on a pitch to fill out this formation in the front 3. I mean, Giroud and Alexis have never particularly linked up particularly well. Theo doesn't add any kind of linking or control from that right side, and we'll get to the good stuff in a moment. But I just think this was a lineup that, if you have 10 really good players on the pitch all in their right position and throw a youth player in at a less favored position, maybe it works out for him because he's being pulled along by the cohesion of the rest of the team. But when you put so many players in positions and in partnerships they're not used to, it makes it even harder on the young players. And you have to feel for them, because the step up to first team, Clive, is huge. I mean, even if the opposition isn't great, it's 44,000 fans. It's, you look up and instead of seeing some other, U23 player, there's Alexis Sanchez and there's Olivier Giroud, and that, and the ball's coming to you faster, and the expectations are greater, and the nerves are jangling. And so this seems like a little bit of an unfair way to give these players their chance to be in the first team. And we look back at the League Cup of years gone by, and the manager didn't used to do this, did he? I mean, he really went with the young players in their natural position, and it didn't always work, but we got a lot of really exciting performances back then, didn't we? Like, when it was Carlos Vela chipping in goals from all angles.
Yeah, I suppose this is the byproduct of something we've always wanted, right? So, I've always wanted.
Depth.
I always see formations as tools, right? So, and we've now got couple of formations that we use regularly. Now, Wenger was always somebody that stuck to one formation, and when he changed it, he changed it reportedly for the Cesc Fabregas type player, and he changed it throughout the club. So the club played one formation. Now we've got two, and there's a couple of different balances within that two formation, both those formations. And I just feel, okay, we wanted that, but maybe for the second team, as we discussed, we need to think a little bit more smartly about maximising their quality. You know, there's a couple of players like Theo, for example. Whatever formation is out there, he plays exactly the same in that sort of inside right channel.
He's going to be in the right channel no matter where you tell him to be.
Yeah, he's the best in the world on that right channel, going out to in. There isn't many players that do that run. It's a very difficult skill, and also it's very difficult to finish from that right hand side. And he does that one thing very, very well. But when you've got a situation where you've got a wing back behind him that's a dribbler, one-on-one merchant that wants to be an isolation type player, so he wants to be one-on-one, and you've got Theo Walcott standing 5 yards in front of you, what do you do? Well, where do you go? Where do you dribble to? How do you create the overloads? How do you combine? And so Nelson was really forced to play inside of a forward who should be inside of the wing back. Mm-hmm. And it sort of restricted him. You know, it's almost like, I look at Nelson, you know me, I'm big onto NBA basketball, right? So they call them ISO players like Kyrie Irving, an ISO player, one-on-one.
Allen Iverson back in the day.
Yeah, exactly, right? One-on-one merchant. Just leave me, isolate me with my man, and I'll take him to school. And that's what Nelson's like. He wants to be one-on-one. He wants to be in situations where he can isolate himself against people. And what we did by Theo doing his normal game and not playing inside where he doesn't want to be, because that puts him in areas where he's not so good in tight spaces, example. And I thought we lost a little bit of Nelson. It was a bit of a shame for his sort of home debut start, but in a competitive game. But hey, that's what we've got, I'm afraid. With it's not a massive criticism of Theo. It's a shame that he wasn't a bit more flexible to play inside and have those skill sets, so he can
wonder if he knows
in those tight areas.
Yeah, I don't know at this point what he is as a player, because he wanted to be center forward, and then he said, nope, now I'm a wide forward, and in this system he's a little bit of neither. I think well, let's get to the good stuff, because for 25 minutes they barely looked like they could resist us, and I felt at the time that it could be 5 or 6. And, Theo was a big part of the threat, and to his credit, he scored the opening goal, and what wound up being the only goal from an absolutely sensational pass from Alexis that traveled probably every bit of 40 or 45 yards across the pitch, in swinger, over the defense, onto the foot of Theo with the easiest of little chips to finish, although the control and composure was good. I mean, at that point, what was working for us, and why do you think we were having so much joy? One of the things that did work, I think, to answer my own question, rather than listening to what you have to say, is
that's cool.
Is Maitland-Niles was overlapping really well with Alexis early and getting to the byline. He just wasn't picking the right ball. He was kind of Gibbsy in a way. He was getting into those positions and not picking the right final ball, and we were getting a lot of joy down that left side.
Yeah, absolutely. And why was that? Because the right one was on the touchline, and Alexis were thriving inside, so they could combine. Whereas on the right-hand side, it was the other way around. The forward was on the outside, and the wing-back was on the inside, which made it very, very difficult to create the 1-2s, the overloads. Because what they actually did, Theo was coming quite deep, and what they actually did is say, well, you can go deep if you want. We're not going to follow you in there. And so it was wasted. But in the end, he made a great run, a great pass. Maitland-Niles, obviously, he's not left-footed, but he's fast. He's athletic. And the level of player they were playing against, he was able to run away from his man quite easily. And he couldn't quite find the pass. If he was left-footed, I'm sure he would have done. But again, I felt for him a little bit, because if you want to pick a position where he probably doesn't want to be, left wing-back would probably need to be top of the list.
Well, I mean, he's shown that he doesn't want to be there. I mean, against Cologne, until we changed system, he didn't seem to be excelling at wingback either. And it's just unfortunate that he hasn't really had the chance since that Southampton game where he shined in central midfield in the FA Cup. Hasn't really gotten a chance to start from that position.
Yeah, and there's a few rumours about, well, not rumours, obviously we lost 2 Willock brothers over the last few years.
I mean, you hate to lose one Willock, but losing two Willocks, I mean, what are you going to do?
Exactly right. But this one, Joe Willock, well, he's really developing physically, and Wenger seems to be prioritising him over other players that maybe have been there, like Marcus McGuane, for example, who also plays centre midfield. He seems to be prioritising his development, Willock, over other people that may be slightly older, maybe as deserving. And I think some of that, just pure speculation, is to make sure we don't lose 3 Willocks. Right, so that'd be interesting.
I mean, at the point that you lose 3 Willocks, close up as a club. Like you just stop being. You can't exist as a club when you lose the 3rd Willock. I mean, come on.
Let's see what happens. But he's an interesting player, Willock. I mean, I spotted him. Everyone spotted him a little while ago. He was just a steady player. He was the 3rd Willock, literally. But now he's suddenly grown. He's gone from he's really physically grown. He looks very tall, very leggy. A really smooth mover, and maybe the club can see something. He could be, if he keeps developing like this physically, height and power. He's good on the ball, been a forward in the past. He's very interesting.
It's exciting. To have that kind of talent. I can tell you, if you read Pep Confidential book, that's kind of how he describes his players. He said, look, he would sit a player down and say, right now you're playing more as a 2nd Willock. I need you to be more of a 3rd Willock. You were 1st Willock, and that was totally unacceptable. I need you to be more of a 3rd Willock. So, as you move through the Willocks, that's really an exciting move. But all kidding aside, look, I think we're in a situation, right, where he's caught because he feels he needs to get Jack Wilshere playing time and Elneny playing time and Theo Walcott playing time and Olivier Giroud playing time. I don't know. It's to keep them match fit. It's to keep them happy. I don't know how happy it keeps some of these more senior players getting Carabao Cup action. They might just prefer to have the night off. But, I mean, it is a little eye-opening playing Alexis. So let me ask you, if you had to guess, is he playing Alexis because he just doesn't trust playing him in the Premier League yet and he's not going to play him against West Brom? Or is it genuinely a case of wanting to get Alexis back into form, and this was a chance to play him back into form against lesser opposition? I mean, because we don't play until Monday, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's purely a fitness thing. He needs to get more minutes into him. He explained in the press conference that, he had a break over the summer, that he literally had situation with injury, so he's had his first break. We all know he's had Confederations Cup, American Championships in the summer. He's barely had a break for years, World Cup. So he's had his break now. But I don't know what you think, but let me ask you a question, right? How do you think Alexis affected our team play? Because I don't know if you noticed, or just me, with my intangibles, I felt that the team were just almost giving the ball at every opportunity, and he completely dominates our offensive pattern. Sometimes that's good, but sometimes it can be bad. I mean, how do you think it affected other people's mentality?
I mean, look, I like to watch the game staring into my Twitter feed so that, it's impossible for me to have any conclusions whatsoever about how the game was played. But in this case, I do have some strong feelings. You might be surprised to learn I have strong opinions on this matter. So I think Alexis Sanchez, first of all, is starting to come into some criticism that is totally outrageous. Let's not forget, we're 6 games removed from him being our top scorer, our top assister, and arguably the best player in the Premier League, right? I agree that he's a bit of a soloist. I agree that he can be a black hole with the football, but he is now the only guy in our squad that dribbles, that will beat a man, that will carry the ball. He's the only guy that really wants the ball to feet and thrives with the ball to feet. So that's a good quality to have. What I saw in this game as the match wore on, as Maitland-Niles stopped making those runs overlapping or effectively making them, Theo, we just know he drifts out of games. He doesn't get involved. He doesn't know where to be. He was coming in tight. I mean, there's a great screenshot right after he does those keepy-uppies in the middle of the field, Alexis does, and he plays a really beautiful, threads the needle pass between 2 midfielders to Giroud's feet on the edge of the area. And Giroud plays a little 1-2, and that was where he wanted the penalty call and didn't get it, where he threw himself to the ground a little bit. And if you look at the screenshot, and I put it up on Twitter, the entire right flank is empty. Jack and Elneny have stood in a parallel line with Alexis and made no effort to move off plane or into the space that exists. There's no one overlapping on the right. Theo is tucked way in and covered himself up with a defender. Okay? It's the only ball for Alexis to play on the entire pitch. and he had to do 8 keepy-uppies into the middle of the pitch for that to even develop. I just think there's a stagnation. You always talk about intensity off the ball. We lack it defensively, but we lacked it in attack on this night. And I think the dynamic of Theo, Giroud, and Alexis just doesn't work. Giroud is in spaces Alexis wants to move into, so he drops deeper instead of running in behind because he doesn't really have that groove with Giroud. And Theo kind of gums up the works, getting too tight to Giroud and too close to the center of the pitch. And there's just no lanes. There's no understanding of space and where to occupy the space where the defenders aren't. And I think that screenshot sort of summed it up. Now, look, you can argue that Alexis does too much on his own, doesn't make the simple pass, doesn't want to just lay it back off to the midfielder. But at some point, if no one's making the progressive pass, if people aren't moving into the spaces, that's what he does. He starts to just try to do it all on his own. And then people point the finger of blame at him because it doesn't come off. I think this was a case where the lineup combined with the lack of off-ball movement let him down rather than him letting his teammates down.
Maybe you have a point. I think from my perspective,
maybe not.
No, I think you do actually. I think from my perspective, being a softy developmental coach, I look for things like having the personality to play. So I felt that when he played with Jack being a natural footballer, plays off one touch, sees things really quickly, they automatically play close together and gelled a little bit. I think you're right. I think Giroud when he goes back to goal, he can be quite limited when he's in the box. He's a very good player, in the box, close to goal, and he starts to bully people. He's very good. Theo's movements, I think we all agree, he has some really very, very, very good movements, but the layers to his offensive movements are pretty low. But what he does well, he does exceptionally well. So that makes it very hard for Alexis to combine. So then what he does, he then dominates everything. And maybe, we all make judgments from benchmarks. So maybe since Chelsea, where there was a far more collective team play, varied, going through a number of players, Ramsey, Iwobi, Welbeck, Lacazette, all having their moments offensively. I just felt it was very Alexis dominated. Is that because is that because he truly is our best player by a mile? Is that because he doesn't respect some of his teammates to share the ball with some of them? I'm in this place where I'm not sure. Normally I'm pretty sure, right? But I think you make a great point. I think we probably just need to see him with Lacazette and Ozil to see the best of him, and maybe he can get the best out of them as well. Yeah,
and by the way, he created the goal. The one really effective final ball of the match, apart from Theo's finish, was him. He created the goal. Now, Theo had another chance where he probably should have scored. And refresh my memory, I'm blanking on it. Theo got him behind one other time. Should have been a goal kick. It wasn't given. He probably should have finished, but it was well saved in the end. I don't remember who put him. Oh, that was the Giroud pass on the counter.
Yeah, I think so. And he went through and he chose the wrong finish, but again, he's very dangerous. Theo he's an enigma, right? He's a tremendous ambassador. He trains really, really well. If you ever go to a pre-season game, he comes back like he's never been away. He does not come back slow or not sharp. The first game I saw him play at the Emirates Cup, sharpest player on the pitch by a mile. Everyone else is blowing out their backsides. He's fit. That means he's dedicated. He lives right. And I just wonder if he's opened himself up to development enough. He's put himself into places in the pitch where he's comfortable, and maybe he's become a little bit afraid to foul, and because of that, he's now become limited, and because of that, there are other people going to catch him and overtake him, and he's coming real quick. And then you ask yourself, as Tim alluded to the other day, I wonder how much he cares, which is a terrible thing to say, but hopefully he's not feeling too comfortable and he's not looking at the Match of the Day studio too hard to be a pundit, because he's 28, 29 and he can still move really, really well. I just hope he's open to development and learning and can free himself from that right channel. because I still feel he can spend time up front if he wanted to. He shouldn't be scared to play on the left and come in on his right foot. He shouldn't be demanding to the manager, I want to play here because this is what I am. Because I feel that limits him. And if it limits him, that limits us. And I think that's a shame.
Look, first of all, there may be a language barrier between you and I because, or between you and me, I should say, because I'm not sure that blowing out his backside or their backside means the same thing over here. It might be related to like we all had beans for dinner, but in any event, look, we're talking about a player who scored 19 goals last season, and I am not a huge Theo Walcott fan, and I certainly don't think he works in this formation, but the extent to which we just decide a player is a passenger who is of no value to us, you know, it's weird, right? Because people were desperate for Ox to stay, and he's so talented, and Theo's the one who should fuck off. Theo has done real things at Arsenal. Real things.
Yep.
He's had 14-goal, 10-assist seasons. He's had a 19-goal season. He just had one last season. He was, for a period of time, our single best big game and single best Champions League player. I'm not saying he's still that or that he's an essential part of where we're going, but the extent to which we've just kind of decided he's this talentless hack is a little bit unfair, especially when you consider players like Ox who, you know, Kolasinac has already scored as many goals as Ox did or something like that.
Close.
Yeah, anyway. But so, look, I mean, as the game started to bog down, it got to be pretty uncomfortable watching, and I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I just think the squad was pretty unbalanced, and we started to see them have, I think, just a little bit more confidence that they could get joy down the wings as they started to realize that neither Nelson nor Maitland-Niles are wingbacks. And I thought Chambers... you know, he did not look super confident or sharp, and I realize he's just back from injury, holding as well. So they started to grow in confidence. But I also thought that our midfield is deserving of some attention. And look, Jack Wilshere starting a football match for Arsenal is a big deal, and we haven't talked about it yet. We're 20 minutes in, and all we've talked about is farting and beans and stuff. So we got to talk Jack Wilshere. I think he started pretty brightly, and as you'd expect, I think he faded. What's interesting to me about Jack is some of the silkiness and smoothness is still there. One thing I love about Jack is if the ball's coming to him, he'll just let it run across his body to his left foot instead of taking 4 touches to turn. And it's something he learned from Fabregas. Fabregas was doing it at 18 years old. But, you know, and then I'd compare it to Elneny, and Elneny had the turning radius of like an ocean liner. I mean, he gets the ball, and it's 7 touches to get facing the goal. Wilshere just lets it effortlessly run past him and onto his stronger foot, and he's going. But the burst isn't there. When he tries to carry the ball forward, that explosiveness and that close control to get past guys isn't there. For you, I mean, the silkiness is still there. Is the athleticism maybe lacking?
Yeah, you don't need to be a football aficionado to recognise that he is just a pure, that natural footballer, right? So, and I think he's just... What's happened to him? It's not talent. It's not a talent thing. It's a mobility thing. And it wasn't shown up so much against Doncaster because he can outrun them. And I thought he actually looked quite good in mobility-wise. He made some recovery runs that were really good. And but you couldn't really tell how good they were because we can't really tell the level of the player. But he looks like he's got a bit of a way to go. But he's a classic example of a player that's been injured so much. Spent time in the gym recovering, and I just think, you know, he's just got his thighs a little bit heavy. And I think
those things are like tree trunks now. And that's like NFL running back thighs.
And I know it's probably something he's done so he can get that burst. But actually, he needs to be. He's not fat, obviously, right? But he needs to be.
Lighter on his
less
feet?
Muscle. He needs to be lighter. And I don't want to say that could be seen he's carrying weight. He's not carrying any weight. He's just carrying a little bit too much muscle in his lower part of his body, which is leading him
That's
to
been
collisions.
said about me, but not really with respect to my legs so much. Just a little too much muscle in the lower part of my body.
Yeah, well, I've got a bit too much weight in the upper part of my body, right? But I'm working on that.
Yeah, you know,
so,
we all have a problem.
So, like, and if you're looking... If you look back at some of his earlier videos, he just looks a bit sharper. So when he would beat you, he would run away from you. He can still beat you, but people are catching him and crunching him.
Well, the ball doesn't stay as close, though. Do you notice that? Like he used to beat you and take off, and the ball was an inch from his toe, almost messy, like, in that it stayed connected to him. He pushes the ball ahead of him now, and he opens himself up to that crunching challenge.
Yeah, he's working his way back. He's got a lovely that thing when you let it go across your body. They call that a no-touch turn, right? Where you drop your shoulder, no touch, let the ball beat the man without you touching it, and then you run away.
So what do they call what Elneny does? The all-touch turn?
Elneny's slightly different. I could talk about him because I've seen some criticism of him today. But so no-touch turn, he pops away. So I actually quite like what we did with the ball yesterday because it's no-touch turn, pop it, get it back, pop it, one touch. I look at him and say, wow, I wish you could do that in the Premiership. If he played like he did last night versus Spurs, we'd all be going mad.
But they didn't press him last night. I mean, was there ever a player within 5 yards of him when he received the ball? He had so much space to operate.
And that's the difference. It's all about levels, isn't it? It's all about levels. And that's a stepping stone to him coming back. His first 90 minutes, I don't know how long, playing for Arsenal, 2-3 years. I mean, that's a major stepping stone for him. So if you're like his manager now, you're thinking, okay, how was your legs? What's your recovery like? How's your ankles? How's those screws in your ankles feeling? I mean, that's where he is right now. That's where he is. Are Arsenal fattening him up for a sale at Christmas? I don't know.
Or to eat at Christmas for the slaughter, maybe? For the Christmas dinner? No?
I don't know what they're doing. Is he in the shop window? Or are they thinking, okay, we're going to keep you till Christmas and you can earn a new contract? We're not sure that situation in the background. But there's a lot of love for him because, he's one of ours, right? He's been there since he was 7-8 years of age. And he's come all the way through, and he's an academy poster child, and it hasn't quite happened for various reasons, which I don't think are all his fault. I think we mismanaged some of his earlier injuries, misdiagnosed them, and he done some stupid things, the way he tackles, and also the way he was tackled. He's had 2 people break his legs, a broken ankle. Paddy McNair, Harry Kane smashed him in a tackle, broke his leg. He's a little bit brittle-boned. Done a few stupid things, and here he is, 25, fighting for his career at Arsenal, and it's a shame. It's a shame, but there were some promising things he did last night. Can he sustain it? Is enough games the next month, potentially 3 or 4 games for him, where we can see where he is in a month's time, and maybe judge him a little bit more then. Yeah,
and I think, look, there was a time when I thought Jack Wilshere was poised to be one of the best central midfielders in world football, and that point in time was the 30 minutes following that Barcelona performance. But it hasn't panned out. I think injuries are a big reason for that. I think he has to be a little more cerebral on the pitch now to overcome just some physical infirmities or physical changes in him that are just natural with the injuries he's had and the time off he's had, and I don't know if he's prepared to do that. But, the manager after the match said he's banging on the door for the first team now. I hope the door still has like 7 deadbolts on it because I still don't think he's nearly ready to be in the center of our midfield as a starter in the Premier League. But I have no problem seeing him start against Bate Borisov, for example, midweek next week. Go ahead. Yep.
He can handle, I think he can handle the number 10 easy in a 4-2-3-1. And I think he can handle 25 minutes in Premiership where Ozil plays really easily. I think at the moment where he is, playing higher up, where he's forced to create and not recover and defend in our 2-man midfield, that's at the Premiership level. And that's, if I was building him, I would build him higher up the pitch, and then let him find his legs that way. But you can't deny his creativity, his vision, his pictures, his execution, his lofty
I think his execution,
passes.
I'll take exception with you, just in the sense that there were a few times there where he'd play that curling pass down the left flank, and you just carry the wing back. It carried Maitland-Niles out of bounds on
a couple of times.
I still think he's just finding his sharpness in that respect.
Yeah, exactly. But he's got a dink on him. He's got the vision to try it. He's got the personality to try it. I think that's really important. Big players.
He also looks more like Iniesta since he cut his hair too. So that can't hurt. You know what I mean? If you can look like Iniesta, surely you can play like him.
Personality is a big thing in football, Elliot. It's a big thing. If you look at, say, Maitland-Niles, who's got all the physical attributes, runs like the wind, really strong, lots of potential, and he's just trying to build his personality so he can impose himself in the group. And that's just the hierarchy of a dressing room. Jack comes in, number 10. I've been the man. I want to be the man again. Give me the ball and let me try a few things. And I sort of admire him for that, to be that brave, to want to put himself into situations that are difficult. And I've just been complaining about Theo. And that's what I want him to show, more personality, to be braver, to develop himself, to put himself in areas where it's uncomfortable and not just play the one game that we know he can play.
Yeah.
And so personality, Jack, top man. He's top class. His body's let him down. He's trying to rebuild it. Personality for Maitland-Niles. It's coming. I hope it happens. I hope he has his moment in the position that he wants to be, whether it's centre or on the wide. Had some debates today.
It's got to be in the centre. It's got to be, for me.
I think so, but some people say he wants to be wide on the right. I don't see it. But
Arsene Wenger has a history of putting his young players in wide positions because he thinks it helps them see the pitch and learn the game. And I know he did it with Ramsey. He did it with Nick Bentner. He's done it with all kinds of players. But in a wing-back role, I think it's a totally different situation because you're asking guys to understand the game defensively and play defensively, guys who are just not built for that and don't have the sense of how reading the game to do that. And I don't think it's the same as playing them as a wide forward when you see them as being a central player. I mean, it's one thing playing someone as a wide forward who you eventually see as being a midfielder. It's another thing playing them as wing-back.
Yeah, I think I was having a debate today with people about Maitland-Niles and how I see him developing, and I said to people, I think he's a little bit reactive, and by that I mean he waits for the game, and then when the ball comes near him, he reacts to it. When a player runs past him, he reacts to that, and everything he reacts to, he does really, really well. Now, when you're someone like Jack, who's very proactive, he goes and gets the game. He sees the next pass, and he's got the personality to drive the game. So Maitland-Niles now, centre midfield, we can look at his body and say, yep, we think you're going to play there. You make us feel comfortable because you can move. But then for him to really progress, he needs to have some of the support line running that Jack and Elneny have, who are natural in there. They've got the personality to say, yeah, I want it, give it to me. My next pass is in my head, it's gone. And that's what he needs to develop on. Everyone's got developmental points. For him to develop that, he needs to be in the middle to develop that personality. And it's coming. It's around the corner. I hope the fans give him time. I hope the coaches give him time to develop himself that way. Now, when you flip it to Reiss Nelson now, we all know he's got a personality to play. He doesn't care. He's saying, give it to me. And that's why everyone's super excited about him, because he has the skill sets, both sides of the pitch. He can play either flank or number 10. He can score off either foot. He can beat you one-on-one. And he has no fear. So that makes him quite an exciting package.
Yeah, I mean, the more I watched this game and the more it started to just drift away from us and become nervy and messy and slow and ugly, the more I really did change my mind about what I had said in the last podcast. And on the last podcast, my point had been, I think he should play a back three in this game because I think there's a value to these players playing in the system that the first team plays so that if they're drafted into the first team, they're ready for that. But it just became so clear that that system doesn't suit these players. Now, that's a problem because what it means is if you do need to draft these players into the first team, there's trouble because they're not suited for it. But you look at this and you say you could have had, Chambers at fullback, Holding and Pear at center back, bring in another fullback, maybe Josh Da Silva, whoever it is, Maitland-Niles, Elneny and Jack, Alexis on the left, Giroud up front, and Theo on the right. And you have a much more natural formation, and you're going to slaughter them. But the manager may have felt like I did last podcast that the goal here is to get these players prepared to play the way we're going to play if they get drafted in. It just did not work. It did not work past that 25-minute mark. And some of that may have been that they didn't take the game as seriously as they should have, and some of it may have been that those pieces just don't fit in that formation. I think Mohamed Elneny is one of those guys that for me, it's hard to see it with him. I just see a guy that you can pass it to him and he can pass it back to you. And he will run. He has an engine. I'll give him that. But the vision and the technique and the range of passing just isn't there. And this goes back to the point that do you want 5 out of 10 players in your squad who can kind of come in and kind of sort of keep things moving? Or do you want players who have a little something extra to offer? I mean, Elneny is probably more well-rounded than Jack and a safer option. If you said to me right now from the start, we either have to start Elneny or Jack Wilshere in the Premier League, I'd probably feel safer with Elneny. But if you said we had to win a tough game, I mean, Jack has more to offer. How do you feel about the contribution in this game and in general of Elneny?
So it's Elneny, right? Again, I was having a few debates on my big train journey today down to Bristol with work. And
you don't have to brag about how you travel all over the nation for your important job while some of us just sit in this room waiting for you to log on to Skype.
Okay, well, I was debating, and people, I didn't debate that much actually, because people were criticizing Elneny. So I always think, okay, so this is how I see him. Right, so how do Arsenal play? So we play out through the back, and we play to our centre backs, whether there's 2 or 3, and we look for that player in midfield, and that player in midfield must be able to want to receive it. Right?
He's got to find space, step back towards the ball and receive it and turn and give it.
Must be able to want to receive it. And then they recycle it and they go out the other side. You do the around, they call it a round call. You go out the other side, you tease people out of their holes, and it's all got to be done at pace and quickly. Quick movement, one pass, until somebody steps out, bang, you're in. Overload, go down the sides, tip-tap, speed up the play. And Elneny, so what role does he play for us? He's the player that players look for. And the reason why they look for him, because he's quite secure on the ball. Right? So now if you don't like him, you think, well, he's quite safe on the ball, Clive. Well, actually, we do this all the time. Whether we play, we tease, we play through the thirds, we build up passes, we build up possession-based confidence, and he's part of that. Right? So in the Cologne game, he was the only one coming to get it. He was the only one trying to move it. He was the only one trying to progress it. Now, if you're looking at other midfielders that are more spectacular on the ball, you close your eyes and think, well, what's he actually done? But then think about the team pattern, the pattern of play, and who connects the pattern. And he is connecting to our pattern of play. That's his role. Mm-hmm. His role is not to be spectacular. His role is to get us playing. And so if we don't go back to front, we're not Spurs, we're not Chelsea, we are Arsenal and we play through the thirds. How are we going to do that without people who can receive it with a next pass in their mind, that move it progressively, that's got the ability to receive it and go out the other side and tease on the other side? Who else is going to do that? Jack can't do that consistently because he hasn't got the physicality. He's the next player. He's a number 8 or a number 10. Xhaka does it. Who else is at the base of our team that's going to direct our team? So if you judge him on that basis and then say, well, that's what you are that player for us, then you'll start to realise his value and why he's probably valued in the team. Because he always supports. Another thing he does really well, when another player's under pressure, he's always available to get your mate out of trouble. And you love that about a player, when someone can recognise stress, recognise danger. As a coach, you think, yes, he recognised that. He's gone around it, supported it, give him an angle, and he's popped it away, and we're out of that trauma. We're out the other side. And that's a very simple thing to continuity. That builds up possession, that builds up pressure, that builds up momentum, second efforts, and he's a part of that. I'm not saying he's... Yeah,
but you know what I'm hearing? So then I hear a guy who would work better in a midfield 3, who needs that guy in front, that number 10 that he can give it to with a safer, closer pass, or 8, whatever it is, right? And because when you have Theo in front of him and Giroud in front of him, who are covered up by defenders and clustered together, I mean, the only place for him to go is Jack or backwards. I mean, he needs that extra option in midfield then, because he's not going to make the progressive pass, but if he's going to be sort of a hub and spoke guy, kind of like an Arteta, and I think Arteta was more talented, but again, like an Arteta, then he needs another spoke. You know, I mean, he does. He can't be giving that ball to Theo running in behind.
So I'm not comparing him to this player, but Busquets, right? He plays at the base of a V, right? So he's at the base and he's got 2 unbelievable number 8s in front of him. One who's got a dribble, one who can't get the ball off in a phone box, right? So, and he just popped that ball, get it, let it go through, out the other side, pop, 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 obviously Busquets was a master defensively. He'd read the game defensively, and Elneny hasn't got that ability. But as a continuity player, that's the role he had, to give it to two players who are more talented than him and offer a structure. So when his centre halves go wide, he'll be popped into the middle. He had a specific role, and he does it spectacularly. If you put him in the midfield too, one of those players, you demand something else from him. And his body may not be able to do it. He may not have the creativity in the last
that's
third.
what I say to my wife all the time. You're demanding something of me that my body is just not able to do, and it's not fair.
So it comes back to systems. Systems, finding the right system for you and giving a specific job by your coach. Now, Elneny now is probably a Busquets-type player, right? But we play in a 2. When we play him in a 2, we want to see more from you, my son. We want to see you have shots. We want to see you get into danger areas. We want to see you have creativity of pass. And some people judge him on that, whereas I judge him slightly differently. I look at him as a continuity player in a 2, a player that provides a platform that's always available for his teammates, that allows us to recycle the ball.
Okay. Look, this game, we've talked about it for 40 minutes, and that's longer than the Arsenal players put in any real effort on the pitch.
Exactly.
So we can probably move on. I mean, we get through, and the good news is it's Norwich at home in the next round. It's another chance, along with the Europa games, to continue to rotate, continue to give players a chance in the side who need that game time, need that match fitness, and maybe even, start to see the young players actually put in their real positions instead of out of position. That would be nice. But it's West Brom on Monday. And I guess my question to you is this the moment? Will we see Alexis, Ozil, and Lacazette? I mean, I think the news is that Ozil comes back into training tomorrow or is back with the team tomorrow. I think the manager hinted that he could be ready. So are we going to see it? Or is he going to go back to Iwobi and Alexis's chance in the first team will continue to have to wait?
I think we have to see it. I do wonder, I hesitate to say this, right? But I do wonder if he'll play Giroud up front. I don't think he will.
You know what?
He may do.
Come on. I was having a perfectly nice day. We were having a lovely time.
But West Brom, they're full of monsters, right? So they have.
But that's exactly why you don't play Giroud. The one team he's not going to bully is West Brom. He's not going to win the duels.
Yeah, I think it's time for our biggest name front 3. I think this is the moment. Alexis had his minutes. Ozil's had his knee injury in time for Chelsea, and Lacazette has had a big rest, so he's ready to go. So I'm hoping we'll see it, because I think they've got a great chance of being quite good together. But West Brom are quite solid in the centre mid with Gareth Barry and Kukovic. They played Johnny Evans at the back, and they got Craig Dawson at the back. He played right back versus West Ham. I mean, against West Ham, it's going to be such an exciting game. West Brom at home only had 6 shots with 1 on target, right? And 37%.
So you're saying there's a chance that our defense might hold up in this game?
Yeah, it might be, right? So it's going to be a game where we're going to have the ball. So
their record against us at the Emirates lately is not good.
It's not good. So we're going to have the ball, and it's about pace of pass, movement, intensity, offensive intensity, and moving them around and executing early. Because the longer you don't score against West Brom, the more emboldened they become, and eventually they will break away and create something that will make the crowd nervous. So it's one of those games where the first 20 minutes has to be good. Don't give no set pieces away, because they've got Chris Brunt, who's got a great left foot, and he'll whip them in. They got Matty Phillips on the break, and he'll speed away. So, and obviously Kieran Gibbs will be dashing down left-hand side. So, maybe we can pop in behind him. But let's see how he'll probably play a man of the match performance, as will Ben Foster, who always plays well against us.
He's got to play Alexis, Ozil, and Lacazette. He's got to. What's funny? The thing with Giroud is, as he's playing less, I've come to appreciate him more, and he's definitely a better player than maybe sometimes I've given him credit for. My main criticism was just that I don't think he's a first-choice striker for Arsenal, and I still maintain that he's not. But the last couple of games that he's come in, including this one in the Carabao Cup, I noticed something he does that I think has always driven me nuts, and I never really could put my finger on it. He never wants to turn and face the goal, ever. Ever. When he receives the ball with his back to goal, his immediate instinct is always to give it first time to someone behind him. Same in the counterattack. When he gets the ball in the counterattack, he always wants to receive it and one touch it back and then start running towards goal. And you saw it. The penalty call, the one where he wanted the penalty, he receives the ball from Alexis, one touch, give and go, and almost gets through. That's the move he loves to make. He doesn't trust himself on the dribble or facing up or running at defenders, and so he never wants to put himself in that position. Now, ironically, he did have one brilliant near assist feeding Theo in acres of space on a counterattack where there was literally no other option. It was a great ball, and I wish he would do that more, and that's my point, because there were a couple times in this game where we were on the counter, he would receive the ball in the middle of the field, and one touched it back. He did that very same thing against Chelsea when Ramsey was running in behind, and instead he one touched it back instead of turning and facing, and he won't turn and face, and I think that in particular is problematic because when he tries to play with Alexis, for example, Alexis wants to give you the ball and make the darting run, and if you're not going to turn and make that delivery, it doesn't work. It's something I've noticed in his game that aggravates me, and enough of that. He
plays the way he's facing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, so, that's exactly it. There's only one direction for him, and that's whatever he's looking at.
Exactly. He plays the way he's facing.
It's a great
now,
saying.
I haven't forgotten the header against Leicester. In the penalty box, he is a different animal. In the box. Outside the box, we sort of can see his limitations. And I just think West Brom is going to be a penalty box game. Right, it's going to be a box game, and it's going to take time maybe for us to get them into their box. But once we do, he needs to come on because he's going to cause some problems. So
they just have so much size in there. It's the only worry for me. And we, as weird as it sounds, one of the problems for Giroud is, it was crazy. He could have manhandled their defense last night. He could have scored 17 headers. And heading is hard, and crosses are hard to score from. But he's brilliant at it, and we just don't excel at putting in good crosses in the air to Giroud. It doesn't seem to be. You know who's good at it is Ozil, actually.
Yeah, and Ozil. So against West Brom, that Ozil inverted cross from the right-hand side into Giroud, that's like bread and butter, isn't it? That assist, we can all close our eyes and see it. And we knowing us, we're going to probably need it. Right, against West Brom. So I think, again, like Theo, he does some things exceptionally well, and he has limits in other parts of the pitch where he's not so comfortable, and that's look, that's what you get for £12 million. I'm afraid
he can come in. Yeah, well, right. Look, he can come in for the last 30. Hopefully, we're not chasing the game at that point, but. Come on. Yeah. Ozil, Alexis, Lacazette, let's just see it. All right, before we wrap up, I think there's one more thing that absolutely has to be discussed, and we really can't go another minute without discussing it. Have you seen the highlights of Oxlade-Chamberlain's Liverpool performance against Leicester? Have you seen it?
I have seen it. As somebody,
it's great, isn't it?
I generally like most Arsenal players, and I like the Ox, and I'm always trying to be positive about most of them, while recognising their limitations. And he's somebody that I've always liked. I like physical players, right? I like players that can move from zone to zone. You give me, if you say to me, who do you like, a Rashford or a Kane? Kane, power finisher, doesn't move so well. I take Rashford all day long. Now, obviously, Kane's goal record is great, but Rashford fits my eye. So I like players that can move. But I've always felt the Ox, it's not about ability, about his mentality. And to watch him play that game, he looked mentally quite weak, to be honest, and it was he looked quite weak, and I was debating again today. I said, you know what, he thinks he's moved away to a situation that's better for him, but maybe the manager that gave him the best chance for his mentality issues was the manager he's just left. Right, so I Arsenal fans are laughing at him. I'm feeling a bit sorry for him, if I'm honest with you. But
I just can't feel sorry for him. Because he's been handed everything. He's been handed the football world at his feet. He comes from a footballing family. He's on a fantastic wage. He lined up this move to Liverpool in the most craven way possible by basically pretending he was going to stay to get game time at Arsenal while never intending to stay. Arsene Wenger deserves huge criticism, obviously, as well, for actually having played him. But the fact that we got £40 million for him, and at this point, Klopp will be hesitant to play him ever again. I mean, it was a comedy of errors. And then after the match, Klopp says, he has a little calf problem. We have to get used to this and just figure out how to deal with it. And it's like everything that sums up Oxlade-Chamberlain in one day, running down blind alleys, not playing the final ball, switching off defensively, being injured, and day-to-day with some niggling injury. I mean, it all happened in a 24-hour period with Liverpool. And I have no sympathy for him. I mean, ultimately, the guy still gets to play football for a living at the club he handpicked for himself at a wage that any of us would kill for. So, I mean...
Okay, can I take that statement back? I don't feel that sorry for
all right, that's better. Thank you. I mean, personally, look...
Once you leave Arsenal, right, you leave the family and that's it, you're done.
It's not...
When you're there, I want to see you do well. When you don't, I'm thinking, well, you know what? We got paid.
Sanchez, and his goodbye performance against Liverpool, I think, is every reason to have some lingering resentment. Look, at the end of the day, for me, the most important thing is being right. I don't get to be right very often. I want to emphasize how right I am about Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And since this is not being recorded, if he goes on to have a great career there, no one will ever know.
Exactly.
Okay, good stuff. So West Brom on Monday, which means we have to sit through a weekend of all our rivals winning handily before sinking to a 0-0 draw against West Brom. No, that's not going to happen, but I'm jinxing it, so don't tell anyone. In any event, Tim and Paul will be back for that. So that you are treated to some real insight and humor and general lighthearted tomfoolery. But in the meantime, we hope you've enjoyed this conversation and that you're not blowing wind out your backside or anything like that, or whatever it was you said, Clive. In any event, Clive is on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you very much, young man.
Thank you. If you're going to call me young man, we can do one-on-ones both on the podcast or off the podcast if you'd like. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review. Write nasty things about Paul and Tim in the comments section, as they will never know. It'll be our little secret. In any event, we'll be back after the West Brom game. Cheers, and up the Arsenal, and sorry about your luck, Alex.